Welcome to the Jamodi podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. You've probably had so many great leaders in your program as players and then your assistant coaches, but also in the coaching community. You go to TABC and you're just, a place like you're surrounded by them. What's one or a couple qualities that you see in great leaders?
Yeah. To me, one big one I thought of just a consistency to where there's just not a lot of variance in terms of, emotion, behavior. And again, the emotion's awesome, but just a consistency from year to year, team to team. I think that's real important of even as players that are consistent players and they can be counted on. I think, people that are just willing to get out of themselves and give themselves up for something, sacrificial Simon Sinek, you don't know if you read any of his books, but leaders always eat last, or leaders eat last, and, get back to the why. Just always remember, why are we doing this? Self-reflective people. I think another quality I think is important is to have some humor about you. I always say, take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. And just the ability to laugh at yourself and laugh at situations. I mean, we've got to see the humor in life, even in the tragedy that's around it. There's so much crud going on.
Yeah.
But we need, especially as people of faith, we should see it with a lighthearted, joyful outlook. Like, I have faith, I have confidence. It's not an arrogance, but a confidence. This is going to work out. I have a confidence in what's going on and what I'm doing. And it gives you a joy as opposed to just always an over serious, stressed out attitude. That's hard. As a coach, you want to be serious, but we got to be able to laugh, and we've got to be able to laugh at things. And so, as a leader, I think as the team needs to see someone that's serious, competent, but also that is joyful.
Yeah, that's a great point. As a believer, also, you hear a lot today about doing things to live your best life, but the reminder is that this isn't supposed to be our best life. Mm-hmm. Like our best life is ahead of us. It's what's next. This is supposed to be hard. It's going to be hard. And so
that's a great point. We've been fortunate to have some good things happen, but I've said a lot. There's not a lot in Scripture. There's not a lot of national championships. There are not. You don't see a lot of, celebration of I did this and accomplishments. I mean, there's a struggle. There's suffering. If there is success, it's usually followed by failure because
tons of failure. Yeah, tons of failure.
And you get caught. So to me, like you said, the live the best life now. I mean, really?
I understand, but it's short-sighted. Like I understand, like obviously now, if we're talking about living to a standard of excellence every day, knowing who we represent and who we're trying to glorify in everything that we do, all for that. But to think as if that this is the best that it's going to be, I think we have a very narrow view of what's ahead.
Certainly. Yeah. We're short-sighted and again, impatient. And but yeah, you're exactly right. Just to remember, this isn't the best that it gets, and even as good as it can be. And we want to, like you're saying, excel. I don't think as Christians we're excused to be mediocre. It's not an excuse to not do our best.
That's right.
But it's not a guarantee that the world will see you as a success because that's such a moving target. A success to one person is totally different to another. And it's just a dangerous trap to get in.
The cool thing with that too is you can almost you can almost never fail. You can almost you never have a bad season when you're defining success in the correct way. If it's only the worldly success of the most wins, the championship, well, crap. Like
Hmm.
I've been a failure for 10 years then because I've never won it, but again, even in those years where maybe the scheme doesn't line up with your players the way you thought. You had injuries to your main players, which, golly, you look at your
Hmm.
greatest years, odds are not a lot of injuries those
Yeah.
years. And,
Yeah.
but if you, I think when you have another standard of excellence or success, you almost ensure having that every year and rarely having failures.
Yeah. You know, we talk about culture, the phrase between having a culture of success or a successful culture. And I think the way of looking at those is really different. And to me, just to have a team that you can lose with and feel good about is the best thing in the world. Just, you know, there's a joy in the wins, there's a joy in the loss, there's just a joy in the team. Uh, and again, we want to compete well. If every year, if we can just be as good as we can be, that's all we can do. Just that's what I wanted this team. I feel like there's years our team we were as good as we could be, and it
Yeah.
doesn't compare to anybody else. It's just we achieved all that we could because that's sometimes we don't, and those are the times we got to figure out what are we doing wrong that's keeping us from really achieving to the level we should, and that's what I'm right now. I'm going through that process for next year. What do we need to do to make sure we achieve the level we can?
Yeah. Coach, can you unpack that a little bit more? A culture of success versus successful culture.
Yeah, you know, I think it seems like our society now has it's a culture of success. If you make it big, whatever, if you've won this, if you're uh, seen as rich, you're seen as social media star, whatever, it just celebrates that success and it's so fleeting. But, I think a successful culture will remain, it'll develop people, it's more long lasting. Like you talked about things that last. Just having a successful culture will produce people that are long term.
Hmm.
It's not a short term, look, I've achieved something and now I'm there. A culture of success, I just think of, already probably 2 years ago, who won the national championship in D1? It's like you forget so quickly.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's like the pinnacle. Now I can, but it's really not. I mean, Super Bowls, it's always the biggest thing in the world for a week and then it's gone.
You
That
know what
that
I loved it? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I'm just no. Please ask. I'm sorry. I was.
I'd love to, in that moment, it's almost impossible, but in that moment, they win it. Maybe not, okay, not in the moment. They win it at any level. They go through the after, and it's the evening now, or possibly the next morning. And what's that moment? You know what, Coach, you've won national championships. What was the moment? Like, is it on to the next? I've heard of some people almost feel like, man, is that it? Like, is that really what all that we were working for? Like, it doesn't feel what I thought. I don't know. I think that'd be interesting to see those high achievers, what they feel once they've actually achieved the thing that everybody says they needed to achieve.
Yeah, yeah. The first time in 2016, we won. We went 35-0. We got to play in Banker's Life. Before it was the D1, D2, D3 all together, like they did this year in Dallas. It was the first time they'd done that, and so we had a season where we were. That was the one year we probably were one of the two best teams in the country. So because a lot of times, like the other times we won, we weren't. We just happened to win. But
Hmm.
it was one of those seasons that when that game was over, there was a relief. But that night, the next day, it was fatigue. It was almost like it was a coming down off of just a 4-day marathon. I was worn out, and it
Hmm.
wasn't revitalizing or energizing. It was almost a crash. The other times, and even this year, after I've been energized at the end of the seasons, but the other times we went up, my first thought was almost, I felt bad for the other team. I almost was like, oh, our kids are celebrating. I had a bit of that's hard to get here and not win.
Yeah.
I mean, to have won, honestly, to have won 3 times, it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. And there's so many better coaches that have coached for 30, 40, 50 years and never even been to a championship game. And so to have been there and have opportunities to win, it almost makes you feel small and really a lot of humility. Like, I don't even know why this has happened. And I feel bad for those who it didn't happen for, because I know I don't necessarily deserve these moments. And so there's a joy for your players, but there's a sort of I sort of feel bad. So it's a different feeling, but that first one was really an exhaustion. The other ones, I've sort of been like, wow, that's sort of fortunate. and
well, that happened.
Yeah. And like, well, I guess we're going to have another season next year. And because then you become a captive to expectations, which I don't ever want to be, to where people think, well, that's just the way it should happen. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, people don't understand how many things have to go right in your way for it to even happen once.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, in sports, there's so many variables that are out of our control.
Yep.
And when it goes your way, you're just like, I'm thankful. I don't know how it happened, but it did.
And what a great reminder to even go back almost to the point you had as far as in practice, looking for those positives and celebrating those minor victories. For a lot of us, that's going to be the key to keeping a team going, because whether we want to say it or not, there's a point in the season. Some coaches may even know before the season starts, it's very improbable that we win the state championship this year. Not impossible, but then the key is, okay, we still want to your point, reach the high, our ceiling, or like Stan Bonowitz says, gas out. We still want to gas out as a team. Yeah. But the key of doing that and moving along is finding those small victories throughout the season.
Yeah. Yeah. And handling the hard things well at that team, because a few years later, I think we were going into Christmas break, we were like 5-4. We'd gone 35-0, and a few years later, we're maybe 6-5. And we were in just sort of a struggle. Weren't playing well. I came back and then got on a run, and that team ended up playing amazing all the way to the very end. And it was one of those years we finally got to be as good as we could and gave ourselves a chance. But there are years where we could play perfect and still maybe not beat the best team, but that's fine. Let's just play good and see what happens. And that's the fun of sports, when your team really plays well. And we, even after wins, if we don't play well, our kids know that that's not good enough. That's just not quality basketball. Even if we happen to win, that's not going to make us think that covers the pain of not playing well. So it just needs to be that day. Do your best. We always talk about going 1-0 today. Love the Lord your God in all your heart. Love your neighbor as yourself. At the end of the day, go back tonight. Did I do that today? If I did, I went 1-0.
Nice.
If I didn't, tomorrow I need to do better. Thankfully, his mercies are new every morning. And so we get to go again. In sports, it's similar. Let's just go win the drill, win the play. It's so small and compared to the big things we're talking about. But in basketball, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Do the little things. I just think we'll have a chance to be basketball successful. It's always like, I want to be careful with that. But if we do those things every day, we'll give ourselves a chance.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.